So, what exactly does being a coach involve at this sort of level?
I would say guiding and challenging the sailors.
Right.
You know, they're at this level. They're veteran competitors. Luke and Stu are in a minority on this British team, in that they haven't been to the games before. Most of the others have.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where a bit of my guiding comes in.
Right.
And making sure that every day on the water we're prepared, and every training day they're challenged. Training days would we try to balance the number of training days with regatta days. And training days anywhere from 2.5 to 4.5 hours on the water, depending on conditions and cold.
Yep.
Cold is often a challenge here.
Is that for you or for them?
More for them. I stay a lot drier than they
Okay.
do. And thankfully the team has kept me well dressed.
Good.
So as a Floridian, I suffer quickly from the cold. So, a debrief before we go out on what we want to accomplish, and it may be a day of training alone and just working on techniques, and it may be a day of practice racing with other British sailors or other foreign teams. So it just depends, and then a quick debrief, perhaps looking at the video, and then let them have their own time for the rest of the evening.
Right, okay. And then how about an event? How do you sort of fit into the dynamic at an event?
It's interesting because most of the World Cup events we go to, I get to speak to them up until 4 minutes before the race starts, and I get to follow them, at a reasonably close range all around the course.
Right.
But all of a sudden during the games, for some reason, coaches are
you banished?
A necessary evil. Yes, we're definitely treated as evil.
Oh, right.
So there's a penalty box that we have to go into once the 4-minute flag goes up, and we have to stay there for the whole race. So if we want to watch, we have to have very powerful image-stabilized binoculars to even figure out what's going on.
Oh, right. Because that will make the debrief a bit trickier if you can't actually see them.
It makes comments on their technique and their decision-making a bit more challenging, since I'm only watching from one angle and I'm quite far away from the action.
Yeah.
So it takes a bit of practice.
Yeah.
I've done it before.
Gosh. What are the sort of biggest pressures on you as a coach?
None on me.
None on you?
I don't think. This is my 5th Olympics.
Right.
So I've been there. 2 as an athlete, and this is the 3rd as a coach. I guess the pressure is just getting them to where they expect to be.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. So you're doing your job if they're there and they're out competing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. What sort of qualities do you have to have as a coach at this sort of level to keep them motivated and things like that? How would you describe yourself as a coach?
Good listener. I would say consistent personality. Not too high, not too low, because as relative youngsters, they're easily...
they're an excitable bunch, aren't they?
Yeah, they're passionate.
Passionate, yes.
They grab life and take a bite out of it, that's for sure.
They're very infectious, aren't they?
Which is great.
Yeah.
And, it's important to keep their thought process and decision making focused on what is the next right thing to do, as opposed to getting wound up about something that isn't actually going to affect their performance.
So maybe you're the voice of reason sometimes?
I hope so. Yeah, my wife doesn't always feel that way, but I try to be that way with the athletes.
Fantastic. Obviously there's pressure on the boys to perform at the Olympics on a home grounds. How are preparations going?
Good. We've spent more time here than any of the other teams, and the Olympic regatta will be quite unique because we'll be sailing on 4 different course locations, all of which are radically different. So there's being able to become proficient in multiple wind directions and tide states on 4 different courses takes a lot of work.
Wow.
So that's one of our preparations, and the other one is just getting into the mindset that this is just another regatta. One of the great coaches in sailing, who I have been friends with for decades. When I was an athlete before Barcelona, he took me aside and I mentioned the word Olympics, and he said, "What are you talking about?" And this is a Russian coach back then. And I said, "Victor, the Olympic Games." And he said, Morgan. He said, "There is no Olympics." And I said, "Victor, what are you talking about?" and he said, "Morgan," he said, "you're taking it too seriously." He said, "It's only the Games. It's only a game. Don't make it the Olympics."
Sound advice.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's just another boat race.
So how long have you actually been working with Luke and Stuart?
Officially since the last Olympics finished. I've been the squad coach, so there have been 2 other fantastic teams, Nick Asher and Elliot Willis, who have won 2 world championships, and Nick Rogers, who has won 2 silver medals, and Luke and Stu were the youngsters of the group, and had great promise and excelled when they needed to.
And are you enjoying working with the boys?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They're
fantastic.
they love what they do, and they're good listeners.
So that was my next question. Actually, obviously you become quite a close knit unit, but do they always listen?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, communication is important. So it's I can talk, till the cows come home. But if they don't listen, we're not getting anywhere.
No. Do you become sort of like
I try to talk as little as possible.
Right.
To make sure that what I say is correct.
But do you become a bit of an agony aunt, a bit of a confidant, or?
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I've been doing this an awfully long time.
Yeah.
So,
what do you prefer? Do you prefer being a coach or when you were actually competing yourself?
Both. Both. It's I competed in the 470 class literally for 4 Olympic cycles. I got second in the trials my first and last time, and won the U.S. trials twice. So and it was in the 470.
Right.
So I've got a lot of knowledge to pass on. I lost my passion for going out and doing it every day. So it's great to pass on. I was a Greek Olympic coach in 2004 in Athens.
Yeah.
And I was a U.S. sailor when the games were in Atlanta. So the home team thing is quite interesting to me. So this is my 3rd home games in effect.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's brilliant. So we were saying about the boys, this is their first Olympics. How do you keep them grounded? And we were just saying about it's just another game.
There's lots of opportunity with sponsor events and going to schools and going to parties and where you can get caught up in the excitement of it all. And going to the opening ceremonies is over the top for excitement. And it's important to in effect remember why they're here. It's for the boat race. And there are fun things, but those are in a different box. Yeah,
just remembering that, it's keeping them focused. So tell us about the boys. What are their personalities like?
It's interesting. Most 470 helms and skippers, the helms are normally angry, wound-up little men. It pays to be small, so that the crew has all the leverage on the boat. And the skippers, love detail work and love working on the boat and spend hours on it, and they get wound up very easily. And the crews are very sociable, outgoing, much more steady in their thought processes, and Luke and Stu are, generally fit that pattern. Yeah. Luke's, I would say, more outgoing than most helms, and but Stuart is the level-headed thinker, and I think that's what their first regatta together was the World Championships, and they got second. Yeah. Which is amazing. Yeah. And it's wonderful. Luke is a fantastically smooth driver. So, after they start the race, Luke drives the boat.
Yep.
And Stu just, tells him where to go. So
Right.
Luke can passionately do what he does best.
Yeah.
And trust Stu. So it's a great thing.
Fantastic. That's great. So, obviously, the 470 inside and out. What kind of boat is it to sail? How does it work well? What conditions suit it?
Boy, I would say all conditions suit it.
Of course.
It goes from in light wind being a boat where you have to be, very, very calm and controlled, to when it's windy, and especially when you're just beginning to plane upwind, you're very physical. And, anyone that's seen the windsurfers sail knows.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our class allows an over 8 knots for us to do effectively the same thing, and the way we've done it
Right.
is the crews unclip from the trapeze wire, hang onto the handle.
Right.
Just pull on the handle.
Okay.
And we've kind of developed that, and we made a conscious decision to do that out in the open.
Right.
Instead of keeping it hidden.
Right.
So since we started it, we got to name it, so it's called shagging.
Oh.
Which for an American is not really, we don't use that term.
But makes us all chuckle.
Yeah, exactly. So,
fantastic.
yeah, Stuart's great at shagging, I must say.
There we go, and I bet he loves saying that.
And it's a very physical aspect of the sport, which I love.
Yeah.
Because it's great when you see sailing and athletes, get noted for
Yeah.
physical work.
Yeah.
And the windsurfers obviously do that. The Finns do that.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great for the sport.
Fantastic. So what sort of challenges do the boys face in their class during the games, and sort of competition-wise?
Oh boy, every day there's a new challenge.
Yeah.
And little things pop up when I was an athlete. Everything from my crew got injured. Actually, almost got arrested in games for good reason, I'm sure. They took our boat away from us just before the event started because they said it didn't measure in, so we had to run around, grab a spare boat from another state even. So I doubt if any of those things will happen.
You feel nice and calm and everything.
Anything smaller than that is actually not a big problem. But it's just a matter of considering what could happen, so that if it does happen, you're prepared for it.
So long as you've got the boys and the boat,
yeah,
it's all good.
And that their mind is just focused on the boat race and nothing else.
Yeah.
Because everything else is unimportant.
Do you think, obviously being UK team in the UK for the games, do you think that is a benefit or a hindrance to the team?
It's interesting because I didn't think a whole lot about it. Certainly a whole different sequence of events happens because they're used to training right here, just as I was used to training in Savannah, where the games were in '96 in Georgia. And they could come and go as they like, drive their cars in, ride their bikes in, and then all of a sudden the game starts and they can't go where they used to go. They can't be where they used to be. So it's a matter of taking that into effect as well, so that it doesn't frazzle you at all.
Yeah. So just remembering everyone's got a job to do.
The environment will change quite a bit, even between now and the games.
Yeah.
So it's in that way, it's not a benefit to the home team because people come in and they just see it as it is at the games, and they haven't had the freedom to roam wherever they wanted. And that it was interesting because until I got interviewed by a British researcher, I think it was last year, I didn't actually nail down what frustrated me so much about my home games as an athlete, and that was a big part of it.
Yeah, interesting. Who would you say is your biggest competition?
Australians in our class.
Australians, yeah.
And the Croatians are actually quite good as well.
Yeah. So keeping an eye on those.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Or not.
You do your best. And
you do
see
your
where
best.
The cards fall. That's all you can do.
So say as their coach, how do you keep them motivated? Say they've been out and they've had a bad training day or they've had a bad race? How do you keep them motivated?
I don't think the motivation is actually a problem because they're always terribly excited to get on with it. But it is making sure that their mindset is off of what happened before. Because at the end of the day, the more you think about that, the more it turns into a story instead of what actually happened, and focusing them on what the next right step is.
Yeah, so put that behind you and
it's all over.
And move on. So as a coach, are you constantly walking around with one eye looking at who's on the water going, oh, you're rather good? Or are you always looking and teaching, even if you can't help it?
Do you mean other people?
Other people. Do you find if you're wandering around and you see youngsters out on the water, do you ever find yourself like offering the odd tip here? Or
I have 4 young boys myself.
Right. Oh, so you've got loads of coaching opportunities.
I don't want to screw it up though. I see enough of the parents in the U.S. we call them little league parents.
Oh, okay.
So I'm scared to death to be that.
Right.
I don't. It's a life
competitive
sport,
dad,
which is fantastic. So I'd rather slow down the parental coaching.
Right.
And make sure they love the sport first.
Yeah, and then go from there.
Yeah.
And then start telling them.
Perhaps.
Perhaps. So where do you see yourself in sort of 3 or 4 years' time? Do you see yourself preparing another team for the Rio Games?
Good question. Good question. To be honest, I'm desperately passionate about this sport. But I am getting a bit worn down with all the travel.
Yeah.
And, I miss my kids. I miss my wife. Thankfully, my wife's Irish. I met her at the Olympics. She was an Irish 470 crew.
Right.
So even though I didn't win a medal in '96, I did in '92. But I tell everyone I won a gold medal when I met my wife. So, unfortunately, I use that too often, so it's a bit worn
She
off.
loves that, though.
Yeah.
Do you get quite a lot of satisfaction as well when they get on the podium?
Yeah. I absolutely do.
Yeah.
And it's whether it's pointed out or not.
Yeah.
It's certainly within the between the coaches.
Yeah.
Everyone's efforts are recognized.
That's nice. Yeah. Feel a bit emotional when they're getting medals?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, just even people I don't coach anymore when I see their success. Yeah.
Fantastic. What would you say has been your proudest moment so far as a coach?
Proudest moment. Let's see. Recently, it was the medal race at the Worlds in Perth. Luke and Stu won the race, and we're winning the Worlds at one point during the race, as it turned out. And I didn't know it because the coaches at that regatta were banished as well.
Oh, right.
So we were banished to about half a mile away from the action, where the spectators were literally, 20 meters from the action. So partway through the race, there were stands of spectators, and they were all screaming at Luke and Stu, and they were far enough ahead. Luke stood up and waved to everybody. And
Love it.
I didn't know any of that.
Oh, fantastic.
But I was quite proud of their rising to the occasion.